So, let us talk about two kinds. 18 years, 500 plus pages, and something that has been magic since it started.
I don't care what they do, and I don't care what they know, and I don't care what they say about me now. No one can touch me now. I'm just flying by.
After losing his memory in a mysterious battle, Trace Legacy, a former leader for an organization of mages known as the Templar, finds himself in the company of Flora, a girl of strange tiger like qualities. As Trace gradually begins to relearn what he once knew, he soon discovers that Flora belongs to a race of people who are the enemies of his kind. As friendship confects with the racial differences, Trace and Flora find themselves in a situation far more critical than either of them can ever imagine. So, that's the summary of Two Kinds, a comic that's been around since 2003. As of 2021, that's 18 years of updating, 18 years of story, 18 years of Two Kinds. And I personally believe it's something that's worth a read. So, let's talk about it. Two Kinds is written by Tom Fishbach. He has been writing this once again since 2003. And as per the summary, it follows our main man, Trace Legacy, the Grand Templar. It follows his story in a world that he had a hand in creating, stoking fears and anger and hatred between his kind and the Kidarians. Now, mind you, the Kidarians just aren't tigers. There's wolves, foxes, dragons, you name it. They're a bipedal, sentient, animal-like species with society much like humans. The main difference is that there tends to be an almost tribal quality to how they live their lives. Not as advanced as the humans, but they still manage life nonetheless. As I said before, this follows Trace's and Flora's connection to each other. They're unknowing pawns in a greater story. While Trace, the former Grand Templar, was instrumental in the enslaving and death and far, far many more Kidarians than anyone's ever taken upon themselves to learn of. Flora herself, her origins is just as mysterious. She, upon their first meeting, was there to kill the Grand Templar, only to find that the man that was once the Grand Templar was gone. And all there was a man who had no idea who she is, what she was, or where he was. And that was something that she took full advantage of. Her full intention was to use him and then get rid of him. Unfortunately for her, fortunate for Trace, his lack of memory allowed him to bridge a gap that he had personally formed between himself and all of the Kidarians and his hatred. Now, I could spoil it. Alright, fine, I'm going to spoil it. It's been 18 years. It'd be kind of odd or a bit if you haven't, at least stumbled upon this by now. Trace's former wife was killed by some Kidarians, and it set him on down a path of one, you could say, destruction and magic that one should never really be involved with. The bring back the dead kind of magic, all revolving around life. This will come into play later on in the story if you do decide to pick this up. Just remember, it's been around for 18 years and it's 500 plus pages, so you'll have an excellent backlog to just go on and read until you catch up. All right, so in doing so, he created, a couple of monsters, and it fueled his hatred. As for the nature of the conflict that robbed him of his memories, after a certain point, Trace decided he didn't want his memories back. He had found a new life for himself, happiness, and he did not want that to be taken away from him. But as time goes on, traces of who he was tend to bubble to the surface, and he actively fights against that. Now, you're probably wondering, oh, what kind of overarching story slash theme could be going on that it centers around these two characters? Like I said, there is absolute animosity between the humans and Kidarians, given that they are regularly at war. Humans have taken Kidarians as slaves, and Kidarians tend to go raiding human villages and destroying them as, payback. But there is a third race and a fourth race. The latter being far more mysterious and relatively unknown. But the fourth race is the Bastions. The Bastions are unconnected. They live off the mainland, secluded on their own island. So much so that they really have no involvement in the story other than one of the current traveling partners, Keith, is a Bastion. But enough about that. Let's talk about the main nitty-gritty. The animosity between the humans and the Kidarians is a very important part of the story because it is the driving force behind a lot of the characters' actions, including the self-professed new Grand Templar, who himself is a Kidarian, and he is actively trying to remove Trace from the picture so that he could assume full control from the shadows. Unbeknownst to everyone involved, there are individuals involved manipulating things from the shadows, pushing things in a certain direction that directly involve Flora's and Trace's relationship and the mysterious fourth race. And if you probably haven't guessed it right now, the mysterious fourth race is basically the children of Kidarians and humans. Flora's pregnant. No one knows it. Spoiler alert, too late. It's been 18 years. Come on, cuz. Catch up. Oh, the artwork on this one is something that you could actively see grow, develop, and change as time goes on while the comic is in production. The sharpness of the line, the clarity, the character archetypes, their physicality, all of that changes and grows as time goes on, and the artist Tom, his skill advances with it. Now, it's not to say that the story is basic. The story is very well written. I absolutely love the story. The story takes away, how do I put this? There is a certain archetype that these stories tend to take. If you read enough manga like I have, where you have humans and sexy non-human things, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this does not go that direction. I guess you can say it's almost wholesome in a way. Very wholesome. As Flora herself denigrates her flat chest, and there is an entire scene where the only way Flora was distinguished was because of her lack of boobies. But Two Kinds. I firmly believe Two Kinds is definitely worth a read. Not only in the aspect of these stories, but the ever-changing artwork and the development of the characters and the overall comic itself. I'm just going to continue to call it a manga since the artist himself self-professes that this is a fantasy manga. You say it's a fantasy manga, I'm going to say it's a fantasy action manga, because there are some scenes, there are panels that are very dynamic, very well drawn, very well colored and shaded. So, fantasy action manga. Okay? I called it. No one else can stop it. If you got a problem, fight me and catch these hands. Okay? Catch these hands. Come get some. I kid. But again, Two Kinds is definitely something you should add to your list. Not only because of the amount of effort and time it's gone into it, but also because the amount and effort and time that went into it and the sheer quantity of progress that has been made, not only to the art, to the characters, to the story, to the manga itself. All right, this is a read, and I'm going to cut it short. Have a good one, and peace out.